Hey class, in today's lesson, we are going to solve multi-step inequalities. Before I jump into the lesson, I want to make a connection. Now, solving inequalities are very similar to solving equations. And what we're going to see is the steps are very similar. One of the major differences between an equation and an inequality is that an equation only has one answer. You have a variable and it's equal to some number. Well, with inequalities, you don't just have one answer, you have many, you have more than one, or you have an infinite number of solutions. And so that is one of the major differences. And so before we jump into actually solving multi-step inequalities, I want to review some terminology that you should already be familiar with. And so the words less than, the inequality symbol that refers to it, it looks like sort of an L. And so that is how you can remember the less than symbol. It looks like an L. And when you have less than, when we go to graph that inequality and we're looking at this inequality on the number line, it is going to have an open circle. Next is greater than. And so greater than is faced the other way. And when we go to graph it on the number line, it also has an open circle. So we're going to, and we'll see this here in just a minute when we actually graph these inequalities. Next we have is less than or equal to, or the words is at most. That also refers to less than or equal to. So you have the less than sign and you have the line underneath it that means or equal to. Now when we graph those inequalities, because it is also equal to, when we draw our circle, we're also going to fill in. So it has a closed circle. And then lastly, we have is more than or equal to. Another way you can say that is at least. And so you have the greater than symbol and the line underneath it. When you graph it, you're going to put a circle, but this time you're going to also, again, shaded, closed, because it is also equal to. And so this also has a closed circle when graphing it. All right, so that is some terminology. Make sure you have that filled in your notes. And now we are going to do a few examples. All right, so given this inequality, again, we're going to see, again, the major difference is with equations, you only have one answer. With inequalities, you might have, you have many different answers, okay? So this inequality says x is less than or equal to 7. And so what are some possible solutions? What are some answers that would make this statement true or this inequality true? Well, let's look at 3. Is 3 less than or equal to 7? The answer is yes, it is. 3 is less than or equal to 7. Look at negative 4. Is negative 4 less than or equal to 7? The answer is also yes. Again, negative 4 is less than or equal to 7. Is 10 less than or equal to 7? No, 10 is not less than 7. 7. Is 7 less than or equal to 7? Yes, 7 is equal to 7, so therefore 7 would be an answer that would make that inequality true. 1/2. Is 1/2 less than or equal to 7? Yes, it is. 1/2 is. Is 12 3/4 less than 7? Of course not. And then 4.5, is that less than or equal to 7? And the answer is yes. So what you will see is, again, there are multiple answers that would make that inequality true. And that is the major difference between an inequality and an equation. Now, I want you to pause this video, and I want you to see if you can go ahead and do on your own, circle all of the solutions that would make this next inequality true. The inequality is x is greater than negative 8. So pause this and go ahead and do the next one yourself. All right, now let's go through it. -5. Is -5 greater than -8? And the answer is yes. Because we have two negatives, the closer that the negative number is to 0 on the number line, the larger the number is. Okay, so you also, if you remember in the song, Teach Me About Numbers, I said the more negative, the smaller the number. So when it gets further away from 0 on the number line, if it's becoming more negative, the number is actually getting smaller. So the bigger the negative, the smaller the number. So -10. Is -10 greater than -8? And the answer is no, it is not. Because -10 is further away on the number line than -8. Okay, so -10 is farther away from 0. -8. Is -8 greater than -8? No. -8 is equal to, but this doesn't have an equal to sign underneath it. Is 0 greater than -8? The answer is yes, it is. Is 9, a positive 9, greater than -8? The answer is yes, it is. Is -3/4 greater than -8? And the answer is yes, because it is closer to 0 on the number line. And then -3.5, the answer is yes, again, for the same reason, because it's closer to 0 than -8 is. So, now when we begin to solve inequalities, I want you to see that solving inequalities is just like you're solving an equation. The difference is that instead of having an equal sign, we have an inequality symbol, okay? Now, the only exception, there's one major difference. There's one exception to this. When you when you multiply or when you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the symbol, okay? You have to flip the sign. So again, if you will look at our example here, I'm solving this. I do -3 to do the inverse operation. Then that gives me -2x is less than or equal to -10. Now I have to divide by -2, divide by -2 to get x by itself. And when I divide by, again, what's circled? When I divide by that -2, or if I multiply by a negative number, I now have to flip the sign. So it goes from being less than or equal to, now is greater than or equal to. And that is because I have now had to change the sign. And so that is the only difference from doing an inequality and an equation. Okay, so you have to just remember, when I divide or multiply by a negative, I have to flip the sign. When I divide or multiply by a negative, I gotta flip the sign. Say what? I gotta flip the sign. All right, I need you to remember that. Multiply or divide by a negative, I gotta flip the sign. I gotta flip the sign. I gotta flip the sign. Say it with me now. I gotta flip the sign. When I divide or multiply by a negative, I gotta flip the sign. 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 Oh, okay. You gotta flip the sign. I hope you got it. All right. Now, let's do some examples. Okay. Here we are going to solve multi-step inequalities. Again, I want you to remember, it is similar to solving equations. All right. So I have x minus 2 is less than or equal to 5. Okay. So to solve for the variable, I got to do the inverse operation. I'm going to add 2. Instead of subtracting 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. The 2's are going to cancel. And now I have x is less than or equal to 7. Okay. So now to graph this, I'm going to go to 7 and I'm going to put a circle. Now, again, because this is less than or equal to, Because it's equal to, I'm going to close the circle. And then I am going to shade the line in the direction that makes these statements true. So again, this says x is less than 7. So which numbers are less than 7? Well, it is in the negative, or in the left direction, okay? To the left of the 7. Those make that inequality true. Again, these numbers are less than 7. So what you will notice is, as long as the variable is in the front, the inequality is pointing in the direction that you shade, okay? The variable has to be in the front in order for that to be true. Again, when the variable is in the front, the inequality is pointing that way, so I'm going to shade that way, okay? If it wasn't in the front, that wouldn't be true, okay? But you can see that. All right, so now I'm going to look at the possible solutions. Is negative 9 less than 7? Well, is it shaded? Yes, it is. Is 10 less than 7? No, it's not. Is negative 4 less than or equal to 7? Yes, it is. Again, because negative 4 would be here and it's shaded. Is 5 less than or equal to 7? The answer is yes, it is. Is 7 less than or equal to 7? Again, because this is shaded right there on the 7, it is. Is 8 less than or equal to 7? It is not. Okay. So, again, that is how you solve it, graph it, and determine solutions. Next one. I want you to pause this next one. I want you to see if you could do that next one on your own. So pause the video. Solve that just like you would an equation. Do the inverse operation. All right, now we're back on it. If you didn't pause it, that's okay. I'm going to walk you through this one anyway. All right, so to get rid of the minus 4, I'm going to do the inverse operation. I'm going to plus 4 on both sides. The 4's cancel. Now I have 15 is less than 3x. Now, to get the x by itself, I'm going to divide by 3. Divide by 3. That gets rid of the 3's. Now I have x less than symbol 5. Now, if you remember, I said when I graphed this, if the x was in the front, then you knew which direction to shade. Guys, I'm going to encourage you, if the x is in the back, it might be helpful to understand it better to just switch that around. And what we're going to do is we're just going to switch it. And when we switch it, we're going to switch the sign too. So instead, this is 5 is less than x, or you could read this x is greater than 5. Again, all I did was switch the whole thing around, okay? Hopefully you see that those are the same. And now I think this is a little easier to graph, okay? So I'm going to go to 5. I'm going to put an open circle. Is it going to be open or closed? I don't know. You tell me. Is it open or is it closed? Open or closed? The answer is it is open. Why is it open? Because there's no equal to sign underneath it. So now it tells me x is greater than 5. Well, what direction am I shading? Are these numbers greater than 5 or are these numbers? It's these, the ones to the right. Again, if you notice, when the variable's in the front, where the inequality is pointing to the direction that you shade. So let's look at our possible solutions. Is negative 9 greater than 5? Nope. Is 10 greater than 5? Yep. Is negative 4 greater than 5? Nope. Is 5 greater than 5? Nope. 7? Yes. 8? Yes. All right. So that is how you solve. And I could go on. And for the rest of this video, I really do. I want you to pause it. I want you to try to work it out, the next ones. And if you get stuck, you can just continue to press play. I am not going to I'm not gonna talk through these. I'm just gonna work through the rest of these so that you have the correct answers in your notes. So pause it, try to finish it on your own. And if you are stuck, you can look to the rest of this video for the answers. But I'm watching you, and so is God. Make sure you pause it and try. And then if you can't, then you can move on. Divide by -2. Divide by -2, because that's -2 times x. I know I said I wasn't going to talk, but I just can't help it. I love this stuff. I love to teach. The 2's cancel. Remember, when I divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, what do I got to do to that sign? I got to flip the sign. I got to flip the sign. So x, instead of it being greater than, I got to flip that sign. I got to flip that sign, and now I got -5. So I go to -5, I put an open circle. It says x is less than -5. So which numbers are less than? Is those. Is -9 less than -5? Yep. Is 10 less than -5? Nope. Is -5 less than -5? Nope. Is 5 less than -5? Nope. Is 7 less than -5? Nope. Is 8 less than -5? Nope. Okay. Here's the last ones. Dividing by -1/2. Gotta flip that sign. Gonna do that. There's no -18 here. So what you can do, I'm just gonna put a 1 behind each of these. Technically this isn't right, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So this is -18. Put a circle there. Because it is equal to, I'm going to shade, and then I'm going in this direction. Thank you for watching the end of this video. In this lesson, you have learned how to solve and graph inequalities. Hope it's been helpful.